This week, we're going to dive into the art of apologies. So just like we talked about last week, love languages, there's actually the concept of apology languages. I would say this is just as important as knowing and understanding your partner's love languages. Apologies, when they're genuine and sincere, and they're backed up with change, can really add a lot of intimacy, trust, respect, and appreciation to your relationship. Sometimes apologies can be really difficult for people to express. And so we're really going to dive into the languages, the different types. We're also going to identify what is not an apology, but might sound like one that's not genuine or sincere, or actually pushes the blame and responsibility onto someone else, or uses lots of excuses. So let's dive in and go into the apology languages. The first apology language is expressing regret. So this really focuses on acknowledging the pain and hurt that you caused your partner. An example of this would be, "I'm really sorry that I made that joke. I can see and understand why you would be upset and why that would be hurtful." Right? So the focus is on acknowledging the mistake and then letting them know that you feel guilty or you feel bad about it, right? But it has to be genuine and sincere that you regret making that decision or making that action. The next apology language is accepting responsibility. So this one is really focused on owning up to how you behaved and how that impacted your partner. An example of this would be, "I accept responsibility or accountability for the way I treated you. I'm really sorry that I acted that way. It's on me that I didn't check in with you first." We want to focus on how our behavior impacted them and taking that accountability. It takes a lot of maturity, self-awareness, and humility to accept responsibility for your behavior, right? You want to show your partner that you're not making excuses and you can own up to your mistakes. The next apology language is making restitution. So this one is interesting because if you have a common argument or fight that happens frequently and you say you're going to change or you apologize, it's going to be really important for this type of apology language to show your partner how you're going to change in the future, right? What is the plan? What are you going to do differently next time to make sure that you can prevent or eliminate this from happening again? Obviously, we're not perfect, mistakes will happen, but when you let your partner know that you've reflected and thought about how you're going to do something different in the future, it makes them feel more validated and trust you. This is also really important for those whose love language is acts of service and not necessarily words of affirmation. So this is important to think about if you've had the similar argument or a similar mistake happen over and over. Take some time to think about how will you make that change, and then share that with your partner and then back it up with tangible ways. So an example could be, if you're constantly running late and leaving your partner waiting for you, you want to express to them, "You know what, I'm going to set a timer on my phone to go off an hour before I'm supposed to meet you and a half hour before I'm supposed to leave the house. And I'm going to make a conscious effort to stick to that schedule so that I don't leave you waiting in the future." And then you do that thing, right? You set those reminders and alerts in your phone. It's going to be really important for the follow through, because something that's tough about making restitution is that if you just say the plan and don't follow through with it, this really impacts the trust and the intimacy between you and your partner. So keep that in mind. The next apology language is demonstrating an attitude of sincerity. So this could look and feel a little bit similar to making restitution, because you want to make a plan, you're committed to doing something different to change your behavior. What's different about this one though is the way that it comes across, right? So our body language, our tone, the way we look at somebody, if we're making eye contact with them or if we're holding their hand and expressing sincerity. "Listen, I'm really sorry. I messed up. I'm going to make this right. I have a new plan and I'm going to do something different, but I also want to hear from you how it felt and what you would like to see differently." So it's about active listening, being empathetic, and showing through your body and your expression that you really care and want to do something different to not hurt your partner. The last apology language is requesting forgiveness. So this is a tricky one. This is actually my least favorite one, and I'll tell you why. Because when we just go straight to requesting for forgiveness from our partner for doing something wrong without the other types of apologies, it can come off selfish and self-centered, and focused on how we feel and wanting to remove that guilt or shame. So it's really important that this is more of an add-on to a different type of an apology. So you can express regret, you can be sincere about your apology, you can come up with a plan of how you want to change, and then expressing at the end, do you forgive me? Or can you forgive me for this action? Right? So it's really important to differentiate that this is more of an add-on after you've expressed a sincere apology or regret. Sometimes the two of you might be arguing, or you might get triggered, and you might react in a pretty big way and feel dysregulated emotionally. It's not really representative of how you feel or how you wanted to treat your partner, but like I said before, no one's perfect. We make mistakes, and so sometimes we might act out of character. So when that happens and you recognize and you calm down that that's how you've behaved and hurt your partner, it's going to be important to apologize in the different ways, and then at the end, ask if they can forgive you for that mistake. So now that we've gone over apology languages and how to apologize in a genuine and sincere way, I do want to go over all the types of fake apologies or things that we might do instead of apologizing and being sincere that are pretty common that people do a lot. Sometimes when we're in an argument or we mess up and make a mistake, we might deflect or shift responsibility onto someone else or even our partner. Right? So you might be in an argument and you may have said something wrong and your partner calls you out on it. And then instead of addressing that thing, you bring up something else, or you bring up a prior fight that your partner did something wrong in. So instead of being present in what's going on in this particular fight or argument, you're bringing up past things, you're shifting the blame onto your partner, you're saying that the way they treated you made you act that way. Right? So these are all examples of not an apology and actually making things a little bit worse between the two of you. So you might go on to a whole list of, well, I was tired, or this happened, I was late from work, you're giving me a hard time, I wasn't able to do this, right? Instead of acknowledging how your partner feels or taking responsibility and apologizing, you're coming up with a whole list of reasons why you did the thing instead of acknowledging that the thing hurt your partner. Another way that we may not be apologizing properly is if we start to minimize or brush off how our partner feels. This can be particularly painful and hurtful for our partner when they're expressing and being vulnerable about how they feel, and instead of acknowledging it or hearing it, we make it a lot smaller by saying something like, you're overreacting, it's not a big deal, just get over it. Right? These are ways to invalidate your partner and make them feel like they're not heard or seen. Another way is blaming the circumstances, right? So this kind of goes back to making excuses is, because of the things going on around me, this is how I behaved and that's why I did that. Instead of acknowledging, okay, this is going on in my life. This is not necessarily an excuse or a reason. I'm really sorry that it led me to acting this way. A particularly hurtful type of fake apology is saying it sarcastically. So rolling your eyes when you're apologizing, the type of tone or body language that you're using, it's not sincere or genuine, and that comes across. So you might say, oh, sorry for bumping into you, or sorry for hurting your feelings again. That's not an apology. That's actually kind of picking on your partner and putting the focus on their reaction and how they feel instead of your behavior and how you made them feel. Or if we become self-aware and mindful and add that space between reacting, we'll be able to eliminate some of these behaviors and go back to the genuine ways to apologize. So as we talked about in previous chapters, intention versus impact is going to be huge when we're thinking about apologies. So a lot of times when we are in an argument or we're fighting with our partner, we're going to really dive into our intention of why we did something or that we didn't intend to do it, right? And a lot of the times our partner probably knows that we didn't intend to hurt them. But what we're looking for is apologizing and acknowledging the impact that our behavior had on them. So for example, if you're walking down the street and you bump into somebody with your shoulder, you didn't mean to do it, right? So the first thing you're gonna say is, I didn't mean to do that. No, you're probably gonna say, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you, right? You're apologizing for the impact of your behavior and not the intention or what you were trying or not trying to do. So that's gonna be really important with apologies, and that's actually gonna really help decrease arguments, increase the ability to be more vulnerable, and have that emotional security in your relationship. So keep these things in mind, and this is a list of things not to do.